to fall to the floor.
Hello, welcome back to another pen talk. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be on a similar theme. I've been on a run lately. Part of it has to do with budgetary constraints, but I saw this pen, I heard about it. Leo had done a review on them a few months ago. This is obviously a Chinese pen manufacturer that has another interesting twist on mimicking other people's pens. So what interests me in this pen, as we open up the box, we'll see something that looks familiar. Again, branding. See, it's a plastic box with a foam insert with instructions on the back. It pops open and we see a pen inside foam. Minimalistic efficiency packaging, very effective. Kind of reminds us of a Taiwanese pen manufacturer. And here's the pen. Certainly does look like a Sailor Pro Color, and we will be able to compare those in a little bit. I wanted to take a look at this pen as received. So one of the things that's nice is the transparency is pretty consistent throughout the pen, which some of these Demonstrator type pens do not have that. Little agitator inside of the converter. We have branding at the bottom of the cap. Just the brand. Nice clear finial here at the top. Nice strong clip. And a completely straight, clear, transparent barrel. It's an unscrew cap, and again, no metal, which will distinguish it from the pen that it mimics. One thing that always makes these pens not quite as good as I think they could be is just a standard steel nib. It's branded, which is always nice to see. It's a fine, nice clear feed, which is reminiscent of some of the Pilots. And that's where you'll see this is like a mix of a couple different manufacturers. Nice rubber O-ring at the top of the section. So this would make a great eyedropper pen. And I might do that after this review. This is the cartridge converter. Doesn't look like it holds a lot of ink. It's probably a half a milliliter maybe. This just pops out. And you notice one thing right away. That is a large opening on that. So what does that remind you of? Well, let's take a look. Yes, it's a Sailor. Did a review on this about a year ago. This is a nice official pen. Here's the stamped warranty from the seller, obviously bought on eBay from a seller in Japan. Here's the pen. It's a nice clear blue pen, clear Demonstrator. Rhodium trim. Sorry about that. Oh yes, underneath is a cartridge and some instruction materials. Comes with a converter, or maybe I put one in. I think I had to put one in. I always have some Sailor converters around. So as we look at this, we'll say, very similar, very, very similar. Unscrew cap. Not a transparent feed, but this is the classic Sailor feed, which probably doesn't lend itself to being done transparent. A nice Sailor steel nib. It's also in fine. Unscrews, rubber O-ring, but a metal piece here in the section which precludes this from being used as an eyedropper. This piston filler will hold a little bit more ink, and as we pop it out, these both unscrew so they're easy to replace. Here's the two converters, and they certainly are a lot of similarities there. I mean, in size and everything. They both have their own branding on them. So that's the amazing similarities between these two pens. Now we're going to ink some of these up, compare them, and take a look at how they write. I'm looking forward to that. I mean, I certainly visually like the Lingmo. Lingmo. It feels decent. it doesn't have quite the feel of the Sailor, but it's close, awfully close. And the color is not exactly the same. But that also brings to mind another clear blue pen by another Japanese manufacturer. And here it is. And the review that I did earlier was between the Platinum and the Sailor. So this is not going to be in this review, but I just thought I would bring it up to show three Demonstrator blue pens. This white insert in the cap of the Platinum has always been kind of a visual turnoff. I think in my review of this originally, this one I like the way it wrote better than the Sailor, but we'll see how the Sailor and the Lingmo compare. So I brought a third pen into the mix. It's a Sailor Pro Gear. Pro Gear Slim, I think. It might be the right determination. One of my fellow pen aficionados who lives in the town next door to me, who I met in a pen meeting in New York City, which is about 40 miles from here. So it was an interesting encounter. Him and I share a lot of common interest in fountain pens, but we have different choices in writing style and nibs. So this was his recent pen acquisition from gift cards that he got for the Fountain Pen Hospital in New York City. So we're comparing that to the Lingmo and then the Sailor Pro Color. A lot of similarities here. All of them have rhodium trim. All of them have a band at the top of the cap. The Pro Gear has another metal band and rhodium at the bottom. So one of the things that's interesting is the Lingmo has a clear part to the converter, which obviously shows up in this approach. They both have that very wide band at the bottom of the cap. And as we talked about before, they have a similar clip, not identical. I mean, obviously the Pro Color and the Lingmo have a more similar design than the Pro Gear model, and the Pro Gear model also has a gold nib in it. So I'm going to ink up the Lingmo and the Sailor Pro Color, and I had a challenge with the ink. I've been into a lot of blue inks recently, but I decided to go back to a standard. So we're going to ink up these pens, put nib to paper, and see how they write. So I mentioned the instructions that were included with the pen. So here are the instructions. I'm glad they're illustrations because Chinese is certainly not a language that I can understand. I figured I'd throw in a common comparison pen just to show that the Sailors are not large pens by any stretch of the imagination. I'm also going to show you the weights between the Pro Gear, the Lingmo, and the Pro Color, 2 Sailors and 1 imitation. The weights are much closer than I expected, and probably the biggest difference is both of the Sailors have that metal part as part of the section. Here we are comparing nibs and sections. So one thing that's interesting is the Lingmo has that clear section which shows you the fins inside of the feed, which is a common thing. Parker 51s had them, and also, to me, a lot of the less expensive pilots have them when they have clear parts there. You know, the section on the Pro Gear is a little bit bigger, but not much. I mean, all the sections feel very similar between the 3 pens. When we turn over to look at the feed, is really one of the biggest differences is you can see the clear feed on the Lingmo. I mean, I kind of like it. I don't think there's any issues with it. It's a copy of the Pilot feed, which has been pretty consistent on the Metropolitan, a whole bunch of pens that they make. So, and the Sailor has this classic feed, which I think I found on every Sailor of this vintage. So for writing, first we're going to start with the Sailor Pro Color with the Shizuku Konpeki ink. All of them have an unscrew cap. I mean, this feels small in the hand. It does post securely and post deeply, and this is definitely a pen you would post. That's one of the benefits of a smaller pen, is posting works well. I think you can hear that nib on the paper. I mean, even with just light pressure, you get a lot of feedback from this nib, which is typical of Sailors, but I think this one is even more feedback than I've had with other Sailors. I mean, this is a fine nib in steel. I would say it's closer to an extra fine. I mean, flow is good. You know, this will write first time every time. Sailors are known for that. With this fine nib, it takes a lot of effort to keep a patch of ink there. And there's not a lot of ink being distributed. This ink seems to be drying pretty quickly on the paper. And I've played with this on different papers like Rhodia and Clairefontaine, and it's similar on all of them. So now we're going to go to the Lingmo. And again, we'll post this pen. It fits well in the hand posted. It actually looks nice. You know, all of these blue pens are not unattractive. It has a different sound, and it certainly lays down more ink. This is probably more like a Western fine. Yeah, this nib requires more pressure than the Sailor to write, and I have noticed it to be, I wouldn't call it a little skippy, but it just needs pressure. I didn't do that with a Sailor, but you know, putting more pressure on it puts out more ink and maybe turns it to closer to a medium. Let's see how we lay down a patch. You know, even less ink than the Pro Color put down. So for a comparison's viewpoint, you have a $14 pen, a $50 pen, both with steel nibs, and then you have a pen that costs a little bit more, the Pro Gear. Unscrew cap, post well, not as deeply as the other ones did, but it still fits good in the hand, and again, not posting it doesn't feel as good as being posted. In case I didn't say it, it has that nice Sailor logo in metal at the top of the cap, which I think is a really nice feature visually. I mean, right away you can see this is a wetter nib. It has the same sound, but it feels smoother. And with just light pressure, it glides across the paper and lays down consistent ink. So that's a difference between this and the definitely the Lingmo. And the Sailor Pro Color is kind of in between. So if you wanted to put these in perspective, you know, obviously this cost about 10 times more than the Lingmo did, and maybe triple what Pro Color did. I think the resin is very similar between all the pens. I think the level of quality is fairly similar. This feels nicer on the paper. And again, there's no softness to this nib. More pressure really doesn't change the line at all, which is not untypical of this type of Sailor Gold nib. And in case you're wondering what ink this is Osagai, the other blue ink, which seems very similar to Konpeki, but just I think a little bit of a deeper blue. So let's just do some comparisons. So that's the Pro Gear. We'll go to the Lingmo. And then to the Pro Color. And all these are fine nibs. Not as much difference as I expected between the three nibs. And also the color is very similar. I have both sunlight and LED light coming in, so it's about as good a light as I can have on this. So in summation, we'll go back to the Lingmo. Aesthetically, I like the pen. Construction-wise, I like the pen. Color-wise, I like the pen. The feel in the hand is good. The section is, I call it a medium-sized section. My fingers don't meet like they do in some of the thinner sections. Is this pen worth $14 or so? I would say absolutely. Especially if you like blue, especially if you want to eyedropper it, which I will probably do a little bit later on, and maybe do a follow-up video. I like the clear section and how you can see the ink through it. I like the clear feed. And the Sailor Pro Color, the fine nib, was picking up paper quite a bit when I was putting pressure on it, which is not something that you like. Now, that is an issue. If you are light at hand, then you may get some skipping with this pen. You need to be consistent. And when you're consistent, it reward you with a nice consistent line. So hopefully you've enjoyed this view of three pens from the Asian continent. One of a mimic and two from a very established, consistent pen manufacturer. So thank you for watching. We'll do that again. That's a little bit better. So may you have many great writing experiences. Explore the world of pens and inks. Enjoy them as you enjoy life. Bye.